So, if you've seen any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you know that there are a couple of themes that run throughout all 5 of them, one of which is the Pirate's Code. Now, it makes its presence known quite early in the first film, The Curse of the Black Pearl. The governor's daughter, Elizabeth, has been kidnapped by pirates while they are ransacking the island she lives on. Now, unbeknownst to her upright, kind of uptight, pirate-hating father, Elizabeth is obsessed with all things high seas. She knows the ins and outs of pirate culture, how things work, the right things to say. So immediately, upon being taken aboard their ship as a captive, she shouts out, "Parley!" thus bringing everything to a grinding halt. She scrambles to explain to the dumbfounded pirates in front of her that she knows their code, the rules they have sworn to live by. And one of those rules is that any prisoner or captive who demands parley must be allowed to speak to the captain of the ship. Now, this kind of works in her favor. She gets to talk to the captain, but after that conversation, when she's expecting to be taken back onto land because they seem to have worked things out, the captain refuses to take her to shore, and she tries to go through her whole speech again. But the pirate's code says, and he stops her and says, you see, the code is more of what you'd call guidelines rather than actual rules. And it stops her completely short. This revelation, this code, these rules that she thought could save her have done nothing, all because the company that keeps those rules do whatever they can to find any loophole possible to ignore those rules, or at least reinterpret them to work in their favor in given circumstances. Just like that, here we are, smack in the middle of our readings this morning. You might have been wondering a bit, what on earth does Pirates of the Caribbean and the Pirate Code have to do with anything we just heard? But at the end of the day, when we look at our world, when we look at our communities, and then we look at the 10 Commandments, I think there are a lot of people who would like nothing more than to quote good old Captain Barbossa and declare the commandments are more what you would call guidelines rather than actual rules. It's much easier to find loopholes and massage the wording to fit the necessities of life rather than take them seriously and at their face value because, well, whoever really wants to follow the rules, pirates or not, right? Felt a bit strange when I read our text for this week to see this text pop up, these commandments included in the Lenten text for this year. If you haven't noticed, there's a running theme throughout the first lessons for Lent this year, the theme of amazing, indescribable covenants made between God and God's people. We began with Noah, God's covenant to never flood the earth again and provide a reminder in the sky of that promise. Last week, it was the covenant with Abraham, that his generations will be numerous and will come from the son of his old age and Sarah's barrenness. Now, though, we have this week, and I don't know about you, but sometimes the 10 Commandments don't exactly scream covenant language to me. Because here's the thing with covenants, they're lopsided deals. When God starts talking about covenants, it means one thing for certain. God is going to bring way more to the table than the people God is covenanting with. God heaps up promises and promises and promises, and the people have a couple of things they have to do to live into it, but not much. Noah just had to try and live a little bit better than previous generations. Abraham has to, agree to circumcise his descendants, but now the whole Israelite people have some heavyweight rules to follow, and it isn't even particularly clear what promise God is making with them to begin with. Takes a bit to figure out what's going on here, what God's play is, what God is promising. But as you seep into the details, it becomes clear. Think about what has just happened to the Israelites. They have lived through years of slavery and oppression. They are broken down, beaten up, and wandering in the wilderness with no idea what to do or who they are, and here comes God. Here comes God with a reminder that not only did God rescue them from slavery to put them on a new path to a new land that will be their own, But God has also reestablished one overwhelming and powerful promise. God is their God. God is the God of the Israelites, theirs. God is with them. God will protect them, watch over them, guide them, sometimes quite literally give them footsteps to follow. God declares, I will be your rescuer, your redeemer, and your lighthouse. And if that isn't promise enough, God also shows them that God has given them each other. They have gone from a tattered and torn slave population that had to only worry about taking care of themselves to a community sworn to live and work and love and pray together, to build something new together. I mean, talk about bringing more to the table, a never-ending relationship with a God who loves them to the point of rescuing them from all danger and harm, and a God who blesses them with the gift that they don't have to live and work alone, but with an entire community. And all they have to do is initially try to follow 10 rules. It's not a bad deal when you think of it that way. Here's the thing with those 10 rules. They strike to the heart of all the things that we generally struggle with, because at their heart, they're all about that second gift of this covenant: community. The majority, 7 out of 10 of these rules, have everything to do with how God's people are called to live together, how they're supposed to mutually support each other, how they're supposed to love each other. And let's be honest, as hard as they might have been for the Israelites to follow, thousands of years of experience haven't exactly helped us all out on this front. When you boil all of these commandments down, you wind up with one simple, incontrovertible truth. The needs of your neighbor and the needs of your community must trump any and all individualistic impulse. If it's not good for your neighbor, if it could harm your community, then it's a no-go. If it could damage your neighbor's reputation, if it could cause them harm, if it could cause even the tiniest rift within your community, nope, not a no thank you, find a different choice. If it selfishly only benefits you with little good done for anyone else, you better backtrack and find another option. To live into this covenant, God's people had to learn and discover that it was no longer just about you, I, me, but it was now always to be about them, us, we, together. This is where we, much like I can imagine the Israelites did, trip up. Because somehow this mentality flies in the face of everything that has been ingrained in us from practically the moment we were born. You take care of you. You take care of your own. You get what you need. You, I, me, mine. We are not a society that thinks dominantly and primarily in the best for all, best for neighbor vein. We think about what is best for us first, and then we worry about how it might impact those around us. And sometimes, even then, if it's better for us than for our neighbor, we still might do it anyway. As crazy as it seems, though, and as kind of uncomfortable as it might make us feel, that's not how we were initially intended to live together. That's not how this covenant was formed. This covenant, these commandments, just as they were to form the Israelites' life together, are meant to form our lives together. We are supposed to look at these and realize that this is about who we are together. And who we are together is vital to every last aspect of our lives. Relationships come first. Love is to come first. Our neighbor is supposed to come first. And sometimes, even within the context of the church, we don't like that. We don't like to think about the fact that our relationships here impact our relationship with God. We don't like to think about the fact that how we love each other is one of the ways that we love God, and that some of the ways that we don't love each other are the ways in which we don't always love God. We don't like to think about these things. We don't like to think about things like the 8th commandment that says that we aren't to bear false witness, which goes far beyond just lying under oath, but in fact has everything to do about what we say to and about each other. It's about gossip and harsh words. It's about conversations that might do damage to another's reputation. We don't like to think about the 9th and 10th commandments that call us to share in each other's joy rather than being envious of what they have that we might not. They call us to celebrate our successes and lift others up rather than wishing that we might have those things for ourselves. We don't like to think about the 5th commandment, which tells us not to kill, and yes, means that quite literally, but also means not seeking to behave in ways towards each other that will kill each other's spirit, their reputation, their hope, their faith, their very life in this community. We don't like to think that how we approach these 10 very small things impact our life as a church together, impact our life when we leave these walls, and impact our own lives with God. We like to think that these 10 things are guidelines, not covenant expectations. Yet that's what they are. And this is what we have been called to be and to do. We have made a covenant with God and with each other to be together in love and in hope and in wanting nothing but the best for each other and thinking the best of each other even when we're struggling. We're called to covenant together in the midst of everything that life throws at us individually and as a community. Joy, sorrow, brokenness, hope, everything. We are a community just like the Israelites who have been promised that we are God's people, protected and loved, but who have also been called to live that covenant out together in the midst of our flaws and our struggles and our mistakes. God has brought a ton to the table for us. God has given us each other. We are a gift to each other, a covenant gift. So may we strive to live that way together, not picking and choosing which guidelines we follow, but holding above all to, yes, these 10 things, but to the one thing that they all really just boil down to love each other. As simple and as hard as that one thing is. Amen.